Hey fellow Tamers and Digidestined, it's Mike, AKA Synaku from Overground, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing off my first place Store Championship deck profile where I played Mastemon. This is the Store Championship I played at Untouchables Mississauga this past Thursday, the 16th of September. And yeah, I went 4-0 with this deck out of the 16 players that were present, and I was able to win first place and get my invite for Nationals. Hooray! So, yeah, unfortunately we missed getting the invite at the two regionals that we participated in. The first one we entered with Carta, where we did play Chaos Gallant, and we did finish in the top 32, but we didn't finish in the top 16 to get our invite. I did play another regional with TAC, where I actually played this exact same list, and then I went X2 again. Finished in 49th place, I think. But out of 600 players, it's not terrible. But still, you know, you're gunning for that top 16 spot. You really want to make sure that you could walk away with the invite. But yeah, so Store Championships got announced, and I figured I'm going to enter a whole whack of these to see if I can get my invite that way. Thankfully, by the second one that we entered, we got it. So I don't actually have to grind any more of these, thankfully, because it's really getting difficult for me to keep attending all these events and take time off work. But anyway, yeah, I'm just going to go over the deck real quick. It's not really anything like too groundbreaking that you see here, because it's LordKnightmon. So it's not like it's anything like super innovative, but my card choices are a bit eclectic, I think, in some respect, just because in terms of some ratios and things that I chose, some things that I probably should have changed after the TAC event. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So the 5 babies we're playing 4 Pikmon and 1 of the BT4 Koromon. Pikmon, as you're familiar, you know, if you have 3 Digimon in play, you get to minus 1,000 from something, and Koromon, if you have 3 or less security, you get to minus 1,000 from something. These are really important with the rest of your DP reduction cards, because it kind of just helps you take off the top of things that you might be missing, and it lets you destroy small things specifically, but help you kind of take down bigger things with just a little bit more help. Onto our rookies, we're playing 4 copies of Starmons. This is the only 4 of in the deck, because this is arguably the most important rookie of the entire deck. This is something that is going to act as one of your main sources of removal, and it combos really nicely with LordKnightmon, as well as just combos really well on its own as a single hard drop. For every Digimon that you have in play, you get to reduce something by 1,000, so the wider your board gets, the more powerful Starmons becomes. We're going to follow that up with 3 copies of Pulsemon and 3 copies of Bushi-Akumon. These are here mostly as utility cards. Pulsemon is a consistency engine that helps you dig deeper into your deck, while also helping you extend your plays depending on where you are on your security. And Bushi is to help you close out games just a little bit faster, while also putting more pressure on the opponent. Bushi, as well as the 2 copies of Salamon that you see here, the Recovery Salamon, these are mostly here to outplay things like Ultimate Flare, because I did expect a lot of security control decks in both the meta of the TAC Regional as well as the meta of the Untouchables event. So these were here to create Digimon that were higher than 3 cost, so that way they could stick around on the field and not be subjected to the Ultimate Flare nuke. But Salamon here is also really important, because since we are playing Mastemon and Blinding Rays, we go through our security relatively quickly, so we want to make sure that we can have a recovery option on the back crack to help us kind of mitigate the life that we're taking and kind of build ourselves back up into a position where we have more security to not just straight up lose the game. This is also comboed with the 1 copy of Lucemon and the 1 promo Patamon. I just want to give myself more options to dump something with LordKnightmon to be able to kind of recover and help me put myself in a better position with my security and not in a losing one specifically. And then finally, we're playing 1 copy of Cutemon. This is just because we only had space for the 1 copy, and this is mostly here to help with the green matchup, because it turns off their Digisorption effects and turns off something like Hidden Potential discovered. This also came in clutch against the red Greymon tribal deck that we played at the event, because I was able to turn off his Nokias as well. Moving on to the champions, we're playing 4 copies of Shuruimon, 4 copies of Pitomon, and 3 copies of Unimon. The Shuruimon and Pitomon are mostly here just to give us quick 1-cost evos to kind of turbo into our plays, and the 3 copies of Unimon here is to help against the green matchup again, because it's 6,000, so it gets around something like Nidhogg. It also gets around in the mirror match, because ideally, if your opponent swings with a LordKnightmon and they drop like a Knightmon and they trigger a Pikmon, that's 5,000 total. So if you have just a regular Pitomon out, that'll just die and you won't be able to block anymore. Whereas Unimon forces them to have an extra layer of DP reduction, so that way they have to have an extra resource to kind of burn through to get rid of the Unimon. So the Unimon actually helps tremendously in the mirror match specifically. Then on to the ultimates. We're playing 4 copies of Knightmon, because it's a LordKnightmon deck, so you want to play as many copies of Knightmon as possible, because he's another target you can drop. On play, minus something by 4,000, so really important. 3 copies of Wargrowlmon. This is the Wargrowlmon with the Digiburst, where you detach 2 to get 4,000, minus 4,000 off someone. This Wargrowlmon is really important because we're playing the Mastemon build, so this lets us put our targets for Mastemon into the trash, that we can revive them later. And then a different addition that you don't see in a lot of Lord Knight decks is I'm playing 2 copies of Sirenmon as opposed to something standard like the BT3 Angelomon. And that's because Sirenmon is here for 2 purposes. It helps me turbo into things a little bit faster. I guess 3 purposes. So the first purpose is to turbo into things a little bit faster, because when I go into 3 memory, I can evolve into 1 to put me to 2, Siren put me to 0, and then a Mega will end my turn. Whereas normally with all the 3 cost ultimates, you would evo into 1 that put you to 2, and then by the time you evo into an ultimate, you push the memory gauge over to 1 and it ends your turn. So this helps you just kind of establish a Mega a little bit faster without having to burn another turn to do so. But it's also good because of how the numbers line up with Mastemon's evolution cost. So Mastemon costs 4 normally, and so usually you would evolve into an ultimate, put your opponent to 0, and then you would evolve into Mastemon, put your opponent to 4, and then you would resolve Mastemon's effect, you know, to get back whatever you need. With Siren, you can go to 1, because we're in a very Tamer heavy meta, so usually everyone's starting the turn with at least 3, and then you would go into Siren, put yourself to 1, go to Mastemon, put your opponent to 3 instead, and then that way you can bring back whatever you want to bring back, and then you only give your opponent that 3. So you're quote-unquote choking them, but at the same time, you're just playing your memory more efficiently in a way that you're not giving your opponent more memory than you would need to. And the third reason we're playing Siren is because Yellow is prone to bricking, and being able to just slam down an ultimate for 5 cost, which is the same as what you see in most of your champions, and then following up with a Mega on your next turn, helps tremendously to kind of get out of tough hands and helps you kind of establish your board presence and your combos a little bit quicker if you're ever stuck on that situation. And then on to the Megas. It's a very lean package. We're only playing 4 copies of LordKnightmon and 3 copies of Mastemon. I'm elected not to play things like Slash Angemon or Wargreymon, just because, while powerful, they did kind of interfere with the consistency of the deck. Slash Angemon is very, very, very small in his DP. So while he can take care of things, he was very susceptible to removal, and he was very susceptible to not sticking around on the board after a security check. So what ended up happening was that I felt that you always wasted your resources into going into this big Slash Angemon stack, and while you could take out something of your opponents, it was never really long for this world, so all those resources that you invested were pretty much worthless for just one source of removal. That the way this deck works is that you can kind of get that same source of removal while not expending your Megas. And you can, things like Starmons and Nightmons and everything like that. And just through LordKnightmon specifically can help take care of the same threats that Slash Angemon would have taken care of normally, as long as you just kind of play your cards in the right order and sequence your stuff properly and manage your resources properly. And with Wargreymon, similarly to why we're playing Mastemon in the first place, Wargreymon burns through our security so quickly that our opponent can kind of like explode their turn out of nowhere and potentially just push us into a game-losing situation or present lethal faster than we would have liked. And this is because there's a lot of aggro decks in the format, and I don't want to end up losing to a random, just in the mirror match specifically, just random double Blinding Rain to double Bushi or something like that. You can just come out of nowhere, right? There's so many opportunities for your opponent to just present lethal, not based on the cards currently on the table, just based on their board state, cards in hand, everything like that. So by giving my opponent more situations to present lethal, I didn't want to play Wargreymon, because I'm already playing enough cards that kind of mess with my security as well. But the 3 Mastemon is actually just really important because it helps me constantly revive sources of disruption. Mastemon being able to bring back Starmons is also always really clutch because that's an extra free source of removal. Bringing back Pulsemon is an extra free sense of consistency. Bringing back Bushi helps me close the game out a little bit faster, and then bringing out any one of these rookies here at the bottom is basically just a toolbox option depending on where I am in my game state and what I need to help me kind of advance. So I really, really, really liked Mastemon in this build, and a lot of builds only play like 2. I felt that 3 was just really good because it's a very strong top end, and because it's 12,000, it generally sticks, so you can get maybe 2 or 3 swings with it, and it'll just generally survive. And then when you combo that with your DP reduction babies and stuff like that, Mastemon is just a house just as big as Lord Knight sometimes to just get over opposing Digimon. And then the final 2 Digimon we're playing is 2 copies of Omnimon's Warp Defeat. Now, we're not playing any copy of Chaosmon Valderarm. And the reasoning for that is a little backwards, and I'll try to kind of explain that as I go on. The reason I wanted to play Warp Defeat specifically is because Yellow generally doesn't have very good security checks. And because I opted not to play Spiral Masquerade, my only good security checks are something like TKs, for example. But if I hit an Omnimon's Warp Defeat in my security, it gives me an additional attacker to pop out for free, and it puts more pressure on my opponent than something like Spiral Masquerade, because depending on where my board state is, especially early game, and a lot of decks right now are very aggressive in the early game, Spiral Masquerade does nothing. I'm usually establishing a wide board by turn maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 5 with LordKnightmon, depending on how my hands line up. And so by that point, early Spiral Masquerade hits in my security are very redundant, and they're kind of rotting in my hand as well. So I wanted to make the deck as consistent as possible by removing those cards that could just sit dead in my hand, which is also why we're not playing Valderarm, because Valderarm can potentially sit dead in our hand, and while it is a quote-unquote good check in security at 14,000, it didn't really do a hell of a lot until we were able to establish a Mega. And at that point, if I had a LordKnightmon up, I wanted to keep the LordKnightmon up because that LordKnightmon kept constantly generating advantage. As soon as I evolved over that into a Valderarm, I lost that advantage generating machine. Sure, I was able to use Valderarm as a source of removal, but at that point now it's just stuck there as a level 7, and I'm not reaping the benefits of the LordKnightmon. And because this is a LordKnightmon deck, I want to use LordKnightmon as often as possible. So instead, I opted to go the reverse route and make sure that my level 7 could always evolve over the non-LordKnightmon target, which in this case is Warp Defeat can evolve over top of Mastemon. So if it is in my hand, well, it does kind of rot in the same purpose that Valderarm does. There's more opportunity to evolve it over a Mastemon that I'm willing to do so to advance my board state. And on evolution, I get to actually destroy a Tamer. And because we're in such a Tamer-heavy format, popping a Tamer gets you so far ahead and generates so much value. Then to round out the deck list, we're playing 3 copies of TK and 3 copies of Blinding Ray. I just want to see these cards as often as possible because TK kind of makes the whole deck go round. He ties everything together. He helps us start with our 3 memory turn, which is very crucial. And then Blinding Ray helps us extend our plays further and helps us push for game both in the early and late stages because it helps us set up our combos a lot faster. So yeah, that is the deck. This is what I was able to take to win the Store Championship at Untouchables in Mississauga. If you guys have any questions or comments about this deck, please let me know. If you like what we do here at the Overground, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a like. I will be coming back soon with another video that kind of rounds up the other winning Store Championship deck lists from this past weekend from my friends, because it's quite a diverse list and I really wanted to shine a spotlight on every single deck that has been winning because BT5 has proven to be a lot more diverse of a format than we originally anticipated, and I really want to show you guys every other deck that's winning. So please look forward to that, and thank you for watching. I have been Mike, aka Synaku once again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.